Step into the rhythm of the groove, you can't lose it.
Hi, this is Ross Payton here with Role Playing Public Radio. This is episode 58, The Games of Tomorrow. And of course, with me, as always, is Tom. Tom Church.
Your voice is as the bleating of a goat, Ross.
You should say it's as sweet as a dulcimer, or something like that.
I'm sorry, I don't lie.
Oh, I see. Well,
it's actually...
No, you kind of do.
My ears are bleeding.
No,
spiritually bleeding.
Oh, well, Right, Tom. Well, thanks.
It's non-physical damage, Ross.
Anyways, we're still doing this monthly schedule instead of bi-weekly, and we'll try and pick it up, but we got a lot going on.
Ross.
No, we did one last month.
I know, but you said bi-weekly.
Yeah, we used to do bi-weekly. Up until you were like, I'm Tom, and I'm doing other things.
Hey! You're the ones that scheduled this crap, not me.
Yeah, I know.
You call me like, Tom, we need to do an episode.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay.
I like how I'm responsible for
Yes, Ross,
everything.
you are responsible. You do most of the work on this podcast, do you not?
So that's because I do most of the work. I should do more of the work. You can't.
No, if you want to, it's your job to schedule that shit.
I see. Tom.
I can't be expected to Ross. Is it time to do an episode?
Why not?
Because I work.
I work too. I'm working on Zombies of the World. I'm working part time. I work too, baby.
Not at a place where you have to go every day.
No, not at a manual labor job. No, I mean, God, no. But, my skin is a delicate flower. Oh, my God. We're just off topic. This is what happens when we don't do it on a bi-weekly basis. But anyways,
oh, my God. You're holding a pen and you're bruising.
I know. But we are here for you, the RPPR listeners. We are... we got a great episode this time. We're going to be talking about science fiction gaming.
We've already covered horror. We've covered action.
Yeah, well, we've recently been getting into Eclipse Phase, the science fiction / horror game from Posthuman Studios, and it is a hard science fiction game, and it is fucking great. And we've been very enthusiastic about that.
It's maybe let me make a character I freaking love. It's just...
I made a character too, a crazy psychic person, and it is a great game. And Caleb's running a campaign of it, so you actual play fans will be looking forward to those as soon as we get through some more of the backlog. I know I'm a horrible monster.
We're still not even done with New World.
I know. We only got a few left. Actually, for those of you, the New World campaign, we are in the last few episodes. I think there's 3 left.
Shit's winding down.
It is. I'll be posting the new one soon, and there'll only be a few after that. So yeah, great stuff. In other news, another podcast project that I've been working on, The Unspeakable Oath. I know I mentioned this in the last episode, but the first episode of the podcast is online. Go to unspeakableoath.com. There'll be a link there. There's also a link here in our show notes. It's 2.5 hours long of me, Shane Ivey, Torrin Atkinson, the darkest of the Hillside Thickets, the Call Cthulhu themed rock band, and all talking to John Scott Tynes, one of the authors of Delta Green, about game design, Call Cthulhu gaming. The one time he got an army of World War I veterans in a Call Cthulhu game to storm the cultist compound, how that turned out. So great stuff.
So Ross, were you excited while you were there?
Well, it was a Skype conference call, so I wasn't.
Were you getting some of the aura through the Skype?
Yes, the greatness of the game.
Their
design.
oeuvre.
Yes, yes. It's a great listen. We'll have more. In fact, we're going to be doing some Delta Green actual plays through the Unspeakable Oath. Some of the stuff we've recorded for the RPPR crew. Some of the things I've done at Gen Con and other conventions. So keep an eye out for all that.
And also, I have the Mytel, the author of the fanfic I alluded to last time.
Yeah,
she actually inspired me to try my hand at my own.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm writing my own thing on fanfic.net now, set in her continuity.
So, so you are not, you decided you are going to promote yourself.
Yeah, but I'm promoting myself. What the hell?
Yeah, self-promotion.
Yeah, when we were
pour yourself out there, Tom.
Before the show, we were talking about it, and I thought maybe I won't do this. Like, nah, fuck it. I'm promoting myself.
That's some good whoring there, Tom.
Yeah.
You're a good
But
whore.
we're not going to link to it. You're going to have to find it.
God.
Oh, wait, look.
Oh, I see how it is.
Well, it should be easy to find. I called the story Divine Fire.
Oh, I see how it is, Tom. You know, that's basically going to be the first comment on this episode. Is like, go here.
Probably so, I guess.
Yeah.
So what, you think I should do it just to avoid that first comment? Like, go your dick! As I'm sure you were probably thinking.
I'm not going to link to it. I'm going to respect your wishes. We'll see what the fans have to say about it. So the listeners out there, you.
Well, since I can't directly talk to the listeners right now,
why not?
well, they're not here.
No,
They're out in the world.
they are. They listen to RPPR. There's a great thread on our forums about where do you listen to RPPR.
I'll tell you what. If enough people want to, I'll link to it on the forums.
Ooh, that's a good. Yeah, go ahead and do that. Do that. I dare you. Anyways, I was going to say about the other thread where people listen to our show on a boat, 2 a.m. Doing anchor watch off the coast. Then there's somebody who's doing. I was recovering from surgery and I was doped up on morphine and I listened to RPPR.
Oh, the best time to listen to RPPR.
It's like, wow, that is pretty fucking great.
There are snakes crawling out of my skin and I listen to the podcast.
Something like that. Yeah, so anyways, one last bit of news. Zombies of the World. I know I keep shamelessly whoring that because I'm a master. Shameless self-promotion.
So I'm just starting to whore myself
exactly.
out. But I learned from a veteran.
The books are coming here. They are going to be in stock this month. They were printed in Singapore, shipped over to LA, then trucked over to St. Louis, and then here to Springfield. And they will be here in Springfield within a week or so. So if you pre-order, this is your last chance to pre-order. Get a free poster with it. Go ahead and do that. And yeah, I will be mailing those out as soon as I get them, and then we'll have it on Amazon. It's already available for pre-order on Amazon, although I don't know why you pre-order there. But you can buy it on Amazon as soon as it's out, and yeah, it'll be great. And I'll have ebook versions of it, and it'll be just fucking amazing. Mm-hmm. So ebooks.
And before I get off this topic, I just want to go ahead and thank Mytel again.
Who?
The author.
Oh, okay.
I only know her by her name,
and
I'm not even sure.
And
I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Probably not.
It's Myetel.
I don't know.
But I don't even know this is a shout out again, but thank you very much for the inspiration. Seriously, I haven't just written fiction for fiction's sake since high school.
Oh.
So it's been about
because I criticized that last story. I critiqued your last story.
No. I'm actually
that one. That I wasn't the one that crushed your dreams to write fiction.
No, I just kind of lost interest. I Ross, if you hadn't done that, I would be very disappointed in you.
Kind of like to think that notch on my belt has killed one.
I crush dreams,
and then snort them.
That's what gets Ross off is snorting failed dreams.
Exactly. So anyway, this is what happens when we do it on a month where we just save up all the crazy and we just unleash it right at the beginning. So,
well, if there's one commodity we have in abundance, it's crazy.
Yep. Anyway, so science fiction.
Yes, science fiction.
Science fiction.
What does that mean to you, Ross?
It is, well, according to Wikipedia, it's the literature of ideas. It's speculative fiction that writes about what possible technological and scientific innovations can do to us, how that would affect us and society and that sort of thing. That's kind of a very traditional definition of science fiction, and there's a lot of others. Obviously.
Well, and it's kind of something you mentioned to me before. We haven't done very much science fiction gaming at all.
Right. Well, that's the thing. Yeah. Up until Eclipse phase, we'd only done maybe, I put Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles as a science fiction game on the actual play side. And really, that's about it. Like, there were some, like, one or two games of GURPS Transhuman Space, but that fell apart. And really,
that was like a 2-session game.
Yeah, at most. And the rest of our games have been Dungeons and Dragons, fantasy, Call of Cthulhu, horror, with more leaning towards fantasy than science fiction, obviously, depending on how you define it.
But I know what you're going to say. Wait a minute. You've done Star Wars before in your group.
Star Wars isn't.
Yeah, but here's the problem.
Yeah.
As Ross
well, yeah.
now.
If you're looking at genre definitions and you call it science fiction, it has spaceships, blah blah. It's not really science fiction because it's basically fantasy that's been skinned. I mean, in terms of I'm looking at this as genre convention and what genre it is. And Star Wars is fantasy. I mean, for one thing, the Jedi powers are obviously
mystical.
magic.
They're mystical.
Yeah, they're magic. They're not.
By the way, fuck you, midichlorians.
Yeah, that was. even with that, that's not something that people,
No, I'm still. I felt compelled to say
there's no
that.
scientific principle on that really applies to it. So, and yeah, it's fantasy. And if you argue with that, I don't even know why you would argue with that. I mean, it's not an insult. It's just that Star Wars is fantasy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, that's a problem with role playing games in science fiction. That's what the genesis of this was, obviously Eclipse Phase, and realizing there's not a whole lot of science fiction out there in gaming. You'd be like, what are you talking about? Well, I mean, like, good science fiction that seems relevant and is gaming of ideas, gaming about ideas.
Yeah, because actually, I would just today stop by Metagames. I was actually flipping through the Firefly book,
Yeah.
and I realized it, but you did mention it too. Firefly is a Western.
Yeah, it's very consciously a Western. I mean, they put this sci-fi pastiche on it, this skin on it, this decoration, this decor, this frosting.
Keep going, Ross. I'm loving this
Frosting,
language.
sci-fi frosting. That's what I'm going to stick to, like a cake. So
A delicious, scrumptious cake.
yes, exactly. But again, Firefly is a lot of things, but they don't really. It speaks more about Western themes of freedom, independence, the frontier, which can be like, oh, that sounds like, well, yeah. I mean, there's some overlap, but
it's mainly a Western.
Yeah, it's a Western. I mean, you have a fucking Civil War in it, basically, essentially. And, Confederates, space Confederates, basically, like, they took our freedom.
They took our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. You have gunfights and you have fucking horses. I mean, really, they have horses in that thing. So, like, yeah, it's a Western. And again, that's not an insult. That's just what it is. It's not about, great ideas or like how technology affects society. It's really about Western themes. Yeah, it's more about who these people are: outcasts, independence, freedom, blah 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 blah. So thematically, it's not a science fiction game. Star Trek.
Well, I have a well-oiled beef with Star Trek. I've never liked it.
I'm not like a huge Trekkie, or a Trekker or whatever you want to call it. I've liked some parts of it, and I've kind of ignored the parts I never got into. So I'm not like the best authority. I mean, I like the Borg. The Borg are badass. So
yeah, but unfortunately, they've been shoved down my throat so much by people that do love Star Trek. 'Cause that's usually one of the first things they jump to. Like, how can you say it's not cool when they have that? Like, wow, thank you for being the 400th person that has said that.
Okay, ouch. And I'm the 401st, is what you're saying.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. But Star Trek isn't good science. It's soft sci-fi. It's not a hard sci-fi. Now, what do I mean by the differences? Do you know, Tom? Or hard versus soft sci-fi?
I don't know if I can give you a direct answer, but perhaps I can also mention one of my other beefs to help explain it.
Okay.
I've never liked the Star Trek technology.
Okay.
Never liked it. It's too convenient, and it doesn't really reflect what it would do to people that had this kind of stuff. If you really had machines that could take ambient energy and molecules and reshape it into into a soda whenever you want for free.
Right.
I'm sorry, that would be all I ever need.
Right.
To live.
This is true.
If that's all I need.
Right.
So I don't get why they just brush it off like, oh, would you like some tea?
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. I would be like, would you like some tea? Oh my God, see, it appeared from nowhere.
Well, right, but I mean that part I can understand because again, like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you have the lower needs fulfilled.
Okay, well here's.
And I know there's a lot of critique of Maslow, and I could get into the critiques of Maslow.
Oh, please don't.
But motivational theory is a complex field, and it says people are not just motivated by like, do I have enough food, shelter, and entertainment?
Well, another problem I've noticed is it seems to me that in Star Trek the average human lifespan is still about 80 to 90 years old.
Yeah.
Despite all the they can do surgery without touching you.
Yeah. That's that's sort of the summary difference between one of the differences between soft and hard science fiction I was bringing up earlier. Soft sci-fi is sci-fi that doesn't have any sort of logical consistency or rigor to actual scientific principles. In Star Trek, the biggest thing isn't even those two things. It's the technobabble. The idea that, oh, well, if I can reverse the flux capacitor and induce
there's actually a song based on that.
Right. Yeah, I'm sure there's probably more than one song.
I think it's just called Making Shit Up.
Yeah, exactly. Making shit up. Making shit up is such a crutch of Star Trek that it's soft science fiction. And the opposite of this is, of course, hard science fiction, where they say, all right, this is what is scientifically, technologically possible in this particular thing, and I'm going to stick to that for good or evil. There's going to be no technobabble. Everything's going to be as logically consistent as possible and in tune with the latest in actual known scientific research and design. For example, in Star Trek, the ships are kind of designed whatever,
Like what would look cool?
Yeah, what would look cool. But like even in Babylon 5, the main space station is what's called an O'Neill cylinder.
And it's rotating all the time.
It's rotating to generate gravity. And that's, one way they can explain why everything's not floating around. Well, we rotate for gravity. So that's now I'm not saying Babylon 5 is hard science fiction. I don't know enough about Babylon 5 to say
I used to watch the hell out of it, but that was a while ago.
Yeah, I was never a huge fan of that, and I watched a few episodes, but I was like, but hard science fiction is not obviously very popular on television per se, but it's very popular in novels and other forms. So Eclipse Phase is very much hard science fiction. They actually try and because they not only stick to what is scientifically and technologically possible, in the sense that someday it will be possible to do these things, but they also look at realistically how would these technologies affect us. They don't have Star Trek we have a medical tricorder that can heal you by just waving
buzzing
it
around your head or wherever the wound is.
But you're still going to live 100 years or less. You're not going to live 300 years old. But in Eclipse Phase, we have great medical technology. In fact, we can put your mind in a new body because we know this shit so great, so well. So
death's a minor inconvenience.
Yeah, exactly. We can clone organs. We can make clones. It's a very common technology, and they explore how that would affect society. That virtual immortality thing is pretty nice. So,
yeah, you ever seen the movie Gattaca?
Yeah, exactly. Gattaca's hard science fiction because that focuses on one particular thing, genetic engineering, and how does that impact society. That's a great example, Tom.
You're welcome.
So what does this have to do with role-playing games? Again, as we mentioned, most of the popular RPGs that we would consider science fiction are really either a different genre than what fantasy, western, whatever, or even if they're soft science fiction, or the other thing, they're just anachronistic. They're products of the age they were written in. Now,
Cyberpunk 2020 comes to mind.
Right, that's the top one. Now, Cyberpunk was obviously a science fiction movement of the 1980s, and back then
the Neuromancer stuff.
Well, Neuromancer, yes, William Gibson. Now, let's see. Now, about Cyberpunk is back when it was written in the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s. That was cutting edge, and they were trying to be as hard science fiction as possible. This is what we think is possible. This is what we think will happen in 50 years or whatever. The problem is, obviously, the predictions were kind of screwed up, in some ways, bionic arms and legs. Well, that didn't come true, but they kind of ignored the idea of wireless internet. We could have wireless internet everywhere.
Because as I flip through the Cyberpunk 2020 book, I see lots of pictures of just wires connecting everything.
Right. And that's again the why it's just one reason why it's anachronistic. There's one line in the Neuromancer, the opening sentence. It's the port, the
sky
above the port was the color of
a TV.
Was the color of a television tuned to a dead channel. This was written in 1984, by the way. So in 1984, the color of a dead channel would be gray. Well, or it could be just solid gray. I think it was depending on what how the TV was set up. So a gray sky, that's fine, and that worked really well. People really dug that then. But now a dead channel would be
bright blue.
Bright blue, yes. So that wouldn't make sense to some kid, 11-year-old kid, reading it today who wasn't aware of what televisions were like, 25 years ago. So you playing a cyberpunk game, it feels like, what the fuck am I playing? There's a really great blog called Paleo Future talking about all these, future predictions and like, oh, we'll all be driving Zeppelins in the year 2000, and shit like that.
Wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
How's your Zeppelin, Ross?
Mine's in the shop, actually. Yeah,
busted hydrogen
exactly.
bag.
Yeah.
You gotta watch that shit.
And so it doesn't feel like science fiction. It feels like I'm playing in a fantasy game, or like it's just this weird.
By the way, fun fact: you know why they actually built the Empire State Building with the top? They did
to hook on. So Zeppelins could hook on?
that was pretty much the plan. They figured there would be Zeppelin docking platforms on all the major skyscrapers in New York City.
Yeah. Entertainment. Anyways,
It's true.
So that doesn't feel like science fiction to me, even though it's a science fiction game. Now, of course, Shadowrun, they're trying. I don't know about Cyberpunk, but I know for Shadowrun they've updated it to incorporate wireless internet and stuff like that. But Shadowrun is a fantasy game because
it has literal magic.
It has magic and dragons and elves and shit like that. So that's not science fiction either. You can't really. It doesn't really work.
It has some sci-fi elements,
right? But again, we're talking about what is a science fiction game. What should it be about? And you can't really have that in Shadowrun because that won't have that like this could one day happen or something like that. Then of course you have other games like Traveller. Traveller, of course, is based on Larry Niven and these other golden age 1950s 60s sci-fi writers, which again feel anachronistic as hell because, well, for one thing, they have faster than light rockets or shit like that, but they don't have wireless internet. Or wearable computers, or things of that nature.
It's kind of like playing Fallout.
Yeah, well, Fallout, they are actually better about these technologies. And Fallout, they specifically make it anachronistic from the start, and they still have AIs, robots, and
but it's just that integrated circuits didn't come until just about the end of the world.
Right. Fallout's kind of its own beast. I mean, it's obviously not fantasy, but it's a very stylized science fiction. And again, it's about ideas like about utopia, dystopia. It's about how you can make utopian, how do you make it dystopian, how do you remake society. So it's very much science fiction. I mean, it's not hard science fiction because again, you have radioactive mutants and all this other shit. So it's soft sci-fi, but it's a very good sci-fi. The problem is there's no tabletop equivalent of it. I mean, yeah, I know there's Apocalypse World and Gamma World, and all these other post-apocalyptic RPGs, but they don't really focus on the purity of the ideas. I mean, like Fallout is very much focused on the ideas.
So what about the Road Warrior?
Well, the Road Warrior again. Well, that's really a Western if you think about it. It's a Western. It's an action movie. It's like the one cowboy versus the horde of marauding Indians. So protecting the villagers.
Well, come on, I like Lord Humongous.
I'm not saying it's a bad movie. I'm just saying thematically it's much closer to a Western or the Seven Samurai than, it's not a science fiction movie. I mean, technically it is, but not really. I don't know. I'm sure genre authors will argue about this.
Actually, Aliens.
Aliens is very much a science fiction movie because again, it's about first contact with aliens, and that's.
But I mean, the thing is, though, the technology in that's kind of real anachronistic.
That's slightly, yeah.
Yeah, because the computers are still monocolor green screen.
Yeah, well, obviously, and they don't have wireless, and they don't have augmented devices, and wearable computers, things of that nature. Yeah, but that's not important to it. I mean, they are truckers, so they're not going to have cutting edge equipment. And two, they do have an android, and again, the main focus of Aliens is the idea.
Alien. I'm talking about the second Aliens movie.
Well, even the second Aliens. I mean, and that one, the second one's a Western too. It's again the cowboys versus Indians, or it's or a war movie. I mean, it's a war movie or a cowboy movie, depending on how you want to look at it. Because no, it's a war movie. Because you have all the archetypes of you have the lieutenant who loses his shit. You have the gruff NCO. You have the badass. The guy who loses his shit all the time. Panics.
Yeah, the tough as nails woman.
Yeah, well, that's more of a recent invention. I was thinking of World War II movies, but yeah, archetypal war movie. So it's not it's not very much science fiction. So
I guess it goes along the same thing as you. What you would really consider sci-fi, or just a number of things.
So now we've been talking about science fiction as a genre now with this other. So how does this apply to gaming? How do you bring this into games? So the question is, we here at RPPR haven't been running many science fiction games, and now we're just beginning to because of Eclipse phase. And so now I've just been thinking, how do you run a science fiction? How is that different from a fantasy game or any other game? Now, Tom, you actually have long stated several times you prefer science fiction over fantasy.
Yes.
Because I know in New World campaign, I prefer sci-fi.
Well, I think it's the thing, really, because to me the difference between a fantasy and a sci-fi game is how I do it is really the kind of character I make and how I play them.
Okay.
Like, take Vashik from the New World.
Yes, a dragonborn, so a lizardy, scaly
Fighter.
warrior, lawful good, kind of does what he think is right, sort of.
Yeah, I play him a little.
Protect society and that kind of thing.
I play him pretty much like a knight.
Right.
So I tend to do that. I don't actually speak in a funny voice or anything, but I tend to avoid slang when I talk as him.
Right.
And sometimes I try to use words that appear in fantasy stories like honor and that kind of
honor
shit.
never appears in
Well,
science
I'm trying
fiction.
to. You know what I mean though. I don't throw in like when we say like it says all right, it's like all right, the dragon's lair is 10 clicks from our position. I don't say stuff like that.
Right.
So but if I could just as easily do him in like a space sci-fi game.
Sure.
As a lizardy alien who wears armor, happens to fight with vibro swords or whatever.
Well,
but I would play him. I would play him differently then.
Well, the weapon, that's a very shallow affectation. I mean, he would use.
But most likely he would be using, kinetic, kinetic projectile weapons.
Right. Energy weapons or something like that. So yeah, okay. So how?
And also, then I would probably make him a lot more gruff and using slang a little more people are familiar with.
Okay, so you role play. I mean, in terms of like your mannerisms, how you actually act out. You say.
Vashik would never go. Vashik would never go fuck yourself. He would never say that.
Okay.
But if I was playing a warrior lizardy alien, I would probably say that a lot more. I would actually use terms that a little more modern sounding terms. Like I said, like clicks or
okay.
Or I could just simply entertainment instead of using bard. I would say like to see that this metal band or whatever.
So what is it about in science fiction? So what is about that characterization that's better?
To me, the technology angle is a lot more aesthetically pleasing than the mystical one.
Okay.
I prefer to speak in technological terms.
Okay, because you're from a technological society?
Pretty much. That's
okay.
And it's kind of what I prefer to read.
All right.
I would rather have a sudden emergency that, oh my god, they're like the reactor core is going critical. We and go, as opposed to the mystical crystal that powers our airship is under attack from some wizard below. We must.
You're really reaching there.
I don't play much fantasy,
except for the New World campaign.
We had airships in that one.
We did.
But if there was a major situation,
yeah,
I would much rather prefer to be a spaceship.
Okay.
With a reactor problem rather than a mystical flying doohickey.
Okay. All right. That's interesting.
To me, it's an aesthetic.
It's aesthetic. Okay, so you just prefer that to. All right. For me, though, what was really exciting for me is again, it's about the ideas and the themes and the design. And in fantasy games, they're not very much about ideas per se. They're about morality. I mean, they what is right and what is wrong. I mean, that's my take on it. Lord of the Rings, obviously, about you have Frodo's personal quest to avoid temptation. Then you have the unjust, the horde versus the orderly right.
Aragorn's reluctant to take up the throne.
Right.
We watched Lord of the Rings for anyone who doesn't know that.
Yeah, exactly. And then in horror is obviously about our fears and our paranoias. various situations, fear of the other, fear of disease, fear of corruption. Call of Cthulhu is about fear of the other, the cosmic other, the idea that there's something out there that is hostile and that we are insignificant specks of dust, and we struggle in vain against something that will ultimately destroy us and different to us. And I find that obviously very interesting. But in science fiction, what I've tried to do when I've run it, and I think Caleb's going for, at least so far in what the few games he's run, it's about the ideas, and it's about what does it mean. Like in Eclipse Phase, obviously we mentioned that there's what they call resleeving technology. The idea is your mind can be emulated perfectly digitally, so your mind can be a file on a computer and can be copied and run multiple times, multiple instances of your own mind. So what I had in one scenario is a villain got a hold of the players' backups of their own minds and put them in other bodies and had them fight the players. And so the players were literally fighting themselves, so they didn't realize that until later on. And everyone's like, oh my God, what the fuck is going on here? And the villain was ultimately trying to figure out who he was, because he was corrupted by a virus, a computer virus, and now he was wondering if he was himself or if he was just a corrupted copy of himself. And so that was, for me, is like, what is the nature of identity in this kind of post singular consciousness world? What would it be like? Who am I? Who are you? What is the nature of I in you?
Or if you re-sleeve, is that really you?
Yeah, exactly. We didn't get into the receiving thing, but that was the forking part was I was really interested in. So that's what I was interested in. And Caleb, so far, we've only played 2 sessions of the campaign, so he's already throwing in ideas again about the computer virus that can alien technologies that we are subjected to that we have no understanding. So we haven't even grasped what the ideas are yet, but we're just beginning to do this. So that's, I think, on the broad scale, that's how they're different, in terms of what they're about. Like, great science fiction games are about ideas, like what is possible with this. How is it going to change everything? And fantasy is about morality, and horror is about fear. So now, on a practical level, how does that mean you're going to run a different game? Like, in game mechanics, that's kind of a tricky thing, because, like, in one hand, you could have the same item, like, hey, I have this,
a wand of healing. Yeah,
it can be a wand of healing in a fantasy game, or it can be a healing nano applicator, in a sci-fi game. And game mechanics wise, they'd be the same. So the idea is, like, for you, when you run science fiction games, how do you make them different than your fantasy or your horror games or your modern games? I mean, how do you consciously try to emphasize the sci-fi?
I do. And I gotta admit, sometimes it's kind of a cop out. I'll admit it.
Yeah.
It seems often, if when I name something, you just really kind of have to think of a scientific-y sounding name to something to really to make it hit home for some players.
Okay. You believe in technobabble.
I do believe in technobabble, especially when it's stuff I actually personally don't quite understand myself.
Okay. Do you have an example? Or?
Yeah, I have a story. I have a story about a. Okay, this was actually an earlier thing I did when I had like a bomb that was getting its power from not basically to what creates a star, but I didn't just want to say fusion, because that's basically a thermonuclear bomb. I was looking for something a little more cosmically powerful.
Okay.
So I was just thinking up, I can't even remember the words I used, but it was along the lines of like hydromagnetic, flux detonation device, some shit like that.
Okay.
But the thing is, this was shortly after high school when I ran this.
Right.
It worked. They're like, oh fuck, that sounds bad, because they didn't know any more than I did. Now, if I was to actually play the game with like a physics student or something, like, wait just a damn minute here, what the fuck are you talking about?
All right.
I've actually since found another, to make it way more powerful. I now just call it a matter-antimatter bomb.
Right.
Which actually makes sense.
Right. That's a physical thing. They're in Eclipse Phase. They're in science. It's a thing that can happen, and they're very powerful.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful explosion.
Actually, So I'm using it in some stuff I'm doing now. But yeah, it's like no. Oh yeah, it's. And so I even did some calculations to determine its possible blast radius.
There you go.
You know, like I said, okay, it has the force of, I want to say, you know, it's like I used a gigaton as the blast yield. So I looked up the largest.
1 billion tons of antimatter?
No, like, you know, it's the explosive force would be a gigaton of TNT.
Oh, okay. Gigaton, I see.
Yeah, so in that one, I just looked up the Tsar bomb, which
Yeah.
was the biggest nuclear weapon ever detonated.
Yeah, it was 100 megatons.
50 megatons.
I thought
It was only 50.
Huh.
Its original design was to be 100, but they couldn't get it aboard the biggest Soviet bomber.
Okay.
So it was like 50 megatons. So just using that, I figured, okay, so take 50 so that's basically take, you know, 1,000 divided by 50 to get how much more it would be, and then just, you know, then use that to, like, okay, so I looked up the blast radius of the Tsar bomb,
Right.
and then just multiplied it accordingly, and then I got like 400 some odd miles wide. So I'm like, all right, so kind of I basically know, estimating wise, how much a gigaton, how big the blast of a gigaton bomb would be.
Okay.
So in that one, I'm actually using stuff
Yeah.
that's could be considered real.
Right. Did that help? I mean,
Yeah, it's actually, I also watched I forget the name, but it was a show on Sci-Fi saying it was like the top 10 ways particles could destroy the Earth. You know, and actually, my favorite was an atom of strange matter gets onto the Earth, which would essentially convert every atom on Earth into strange matter. But there was another one, was an antimatter explosion. I think they said it was somewhere along the lines of several 100,000 tons of antimatter colliding with an equal part, regular matter would utterly atomize the planet.
Right.
So, but yeah, that's like, oh yeah, that stuff, it reacts when you got to incorporate that stuff. Yeah, I like science.
Yes. So yeah, that's a good technique actually, is to take cutting edge scientific principles, theories, ideas, and incorporate it in the game. In fact, that's how a lot of sci-fi works, is taking the stuff. Other popular topics include quantum anything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, actually, there's one this might actually be giving a little bit of praise to palladium.
Okay.
I'm sorry if advanced, but I was actually looking it up in the new edition After the Bomb book. They have something called spider goats.
Yeah.
Which was actually, and then they were referencing actually mixing like spider silk into like goat milk, like making it where like the goat milk these goats produced had spider silk in it.
Right.
To increase like it's some kind of nutritional benefit to have that in there.
Right.
So they were simply going off of that.
Right. So yeah,
they did a little research on that.
That's a little research. So sounds pretty good. Yeah, so that's a good idea, is taking this stuff, like I said, quantum, anything like a.
But yeah, I'd say if you want to make a sci-fi game, your best friend, I think, really would be like Nova and such kind.
Well, I mean, that would be a starting off point. I mean, there are quite a few good resources on the internet. The Smithsonian blog. There's a lot of really good science blogs out there, and start looking up topics. I mean, there's always going to be news releases about new technologies, new discoveries, that kind of thing.
Yeah, actually, I on RPG.net, I remember a lot of like sci-fi game ideas came out when right before they fired up the Hadron Super Collider.
Right, the Hadron, the particle collider, yeah. Obviously, that would be, there's.
That was, by the way, that was actually on that same show, like the top 10 ways Earth could be destroyed. They actually mentioned that basically they meant specifically the Hadron Particle Collider actually opens up a black hole.
Right. No, that was another thing they talked about, or that I was aware of. I mean, there were people like, "Don't turn it on; it's going to destroy us all." There's not a. I remember the Daily Show actually did a part about it where it says, "Well, the guy who's like, don't turn it on. You see, there's either two things. One of two things that can happen: either it destroys the world or it doesn't. So that means there's a 50% chance it could happen." So. And the Daily Show obviously poked fun of that. Like, if there's two things that could happen, that's not necessarily 50% chance. If there's two outcomes, it's not how probability works. So that's one good idea. Is obviously incorporating real science as for scenario fodder or that kind of thing. But in terms of, again, we're getting more like the practicality, like how does a science fiction game feel different than a magical, fantasy game or horror game. Another thing for me is just tools and how they're used. In a magical game, fantasy game, obviously, you have differing availabilities of things. And there's only that 1+1 sword versus troll, or +5 versus trolls, or whatever else like that. And each magical item is very hard to find or very rare or whatever else like that. But in a sci-fi game, technology, might be rare or hard to get, but it should be understood. Like, people are going to be like, "Oh my God, you're using this strange weapon on us," or like in Eclipse Phase, one of the things is there's what they call T-ray emitters, which allow you to basically have better than X-ray vision, so you can see through things. But this is a common, easily available technology. So I'm like, I'm going to use this, and then NPC should use it on you, and so it's going to be so.
Or actually, if I may give a shout out once again to
Yeah.
the same author on fanfiction.net.
Okay.
She does a lot of investigative stuff in her story based on Mass Effect.
Right.
And she makes a point that, the cops look at possibilities of using really advanced technology. That's just among the first things they do when they investigate a crime scene.
Right.
So if they saw, strain, like the wall was partially melted, they're gonna says someone might have used a plasma ejector here. I'm not.
Right.
Says, but you have to be a small one, maybe a single shot.
Right.
They would.
Right, there'd be forensics to keep up with technology. People wouldn't be mystified by like, oh my God, he saw our weapons even though they're in our pants. That's amazing. They'd be like, oh, fucker has a T-ray emitter.
Or like, dude, he's awfully calm after seeing that. Oh, yogurt.
Right. Yeah.
I find that very amusing.
Yes, one of the drugs in Eclipse Phase is called Comfort, and it's actually yogurt that calms you down and makes you less crazy temporarily.
Restores sanity, basically.
So that's awesome. But no, the other thing is in terms of practicality. In fantasy games, magic items are very rare, and they're won in battle or crafted individually. So there's a very scarce environment. Like players have to. Every item, every piece of gear is hard fought for and won. In a sci-fi game, it should be like not how much gear you have, but what you do with it. Like, how creative can you be with it? How intelligent can you be? So, like, you shouldn't be threatened by players that have a lot of weird gear or that gives them access to unusual powers. Now, obviously, be like, oh, well, I have a battle cruiser. I'll just use my remote control and vaporize that guy while it's sitting in orbit or whatever. I mean, obviously, there's unbalanced super technology. You don't want players getting their hands on antimatter, warheads.
The matter-antimatter bombs.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want that, but you don't want them to be. You don't want to give the same kind of economics or the same kind of scarcity of like, if they're in Eclipse Phase, you shouldn't be like, well, nobody can take a T-ray emitter. No, yeah, exactly. Nobody can do this. Nobody can have boosted reflexes. Nobody can do this. You don't want to limit what kind of gear they have available for it. You should let them go nuts with it and be creative with it, because that's part, again, literature of ideas. How can you use technology in new ways? And so and one thing about Eclipse Phase that no sci-fi game is going to really do is like, the authors can think of they can only think of so many possibilities that can be done with the technology. They're not going to think of everything that players are going to be able to think of with this given technology. They're a devious
lot.
Right, exactly. Players are assholes.
Whose job is to screw the DM.
So you kind of have to, when you're running a science fiction game, you have to give players access to the technology, unless it's like a post-apocalyptic game, and that's the whole point. But you have to be flexible to let them use it in ways you didn't anticipate. I mean, that's part of the fun in it, I think, is being...
Once again, yeah, as long as it makes sense.
Right.
I want to use my I want to use the watch I have that actually is a digital watch in my skin.
Yeah.
I want to cut it open and let some of the capacitance liquid melt through the bars. No. It's not that. That's not what it is.
Well, actually, what you should do, again, to encourage the science fiction part of it, the science part of it, is if the player can make a good argument that capacitance fluid would actually melt stuff if it was cut open and put on there, then yeah, I would allow it. Because another thing would be not just using tools on way, but using the scientific theories you've proved are true in this game. If there's faster than light technology, then some physicists would argue then you could have time travel. And it's a very complex thing. But if a player can argue like, well, if I do this, if this is true and this is true, then this should happen. Be like, well, yeah. I mean, logically,
Just live with the consequences.
Yeah, exactly. So, you should let players try to understand the concepts, the science in the game, and then really take ownership of it, so they can really push the ideas in it. Now, obviously, this will be hard to design for, especially in really advanced games like Eclipse Phase. It's almost like a superhero game because, like, my character has chameleon skin, psychic powers to read minds. Let's see here. What else? The T-ray emitter, grip pad so he can climb up walls.
I'm a talking octopus that can have 8 swords.
Right, yeah, exactly. And we all have personal AI assistants. I have my mental speed is improved, so I can actually watch bullets as they fly by me. I have a lot of ridiculous things that I can do. So there's so many things my character can do. I can't even keep up with it all. But that's awesome, because I can solve problems in a lot of different ways.
Because it gives the players options.
Yeah, exactly. So again, you just have to keep understand these ideas, and that's I think at the core how players would understand this game is different than a fantasy game. Is how they use tools, how they use the theories, the ideas in it, and to overcome the conflicts in the game. In a fantasy game, there's no like, oh well, if this magic spell does this and this magic spell does that, then this should be true. Well, no, it's magic. It's totally fucking arbitrary. There's no logic to it. It's just, this is true because the god of magic said this was true.
Like, well, if this monster has 2 heads, then the mental strength of that should make it like, we should lower its reflex time by like, no, it's magical.
Yeah, exactly. So fantasy things are arbitrary, and then horror things are purposefully irrational because like it should do, if this is true and this is true, this should be true. No, it's not. That's why you go crazy.
Son of a bitch.
Exactly. But in sci-fi, you have to at least have the honesty to do this, to stick to the ideas of the game. So which makes it a challenge to run because you have some imagination to figure it out and be flexible and be willing to change your plans because the players are assholes and figure out how to teleport an antimatter bomb to the heart of the enemy and be like, fuckers,
I'll get you next time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, so that kind of
I think we should try to do a little more sci-fi besides just Eclipse Phase.
Well, that's the thing is outside of Eclipse Phase, I don't know of any really hard sci-fi games that feel relevant today because they feel again anachronistic or
there will be another Lady Gaga.
There will be a Lady Gaga, but again, that's its own beast for you actual play fans out there. But what would your suggestion for a good science fiction game other than Eclipse Phase? I mean, I know there's Transhuman Space, but Transhuman Space has the problem of a game design perspective of
what do you do?
Yeah, exactly. There's not a really great conflict in there, so yeah. Sorry, Transhuman Space, you're interesting, but you're kind of boring. Yeah.
What about Warhammer 40K?
That's really that's fantasy. I mean that's really fucking fantasy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
I'm trying to actually think of shit that's out.
That's the whole point of this episode, Tom. Is there is a dearth of good hard sci-fi RPGs, is what I'm saying. And of course, then people will be posting in the comments like, "Oh my God, you totally forgot this." And
well, that's why we rely on you people.
Yeah, exactly. Do our work, minions. So
Ross said that, not me. Yeah. Ross is the one with delusions of grandeur here.
I do all the work. You shut your face.
See, he's already trying to order me around.
Yeah, trying. That's the key operative word there. So yeah. So I think that kind of sums up this little discussion here. We'll of course talk about it more in the future. And yeah, we do have some reader letters. Tom has a letter.
Yeah.
And then we have shout outs and an anecdote from the letter. So plus Tom has another one that he wants to talk about. Recent game event. Aaron did something funny. So anyways, we'll be back in a bit.
But when electricity is supplied, we'll grow 10 times outside.
Let's talk about frozen yogurt. Wait, stick with me here. This might seem a bit strange, but I will tie this into gaming, I promise. But for now, I'm going to need you to stick with me. Now, frozen yogurt. I don't know how you all listeners out there feel about the subject, what with your refined tastes and impeccable class. But as for me, I love frozen yogurt. I have many reasons, most of which are based off a constant struggle with a weight problem. But whatever my reasons, I like it. I buy it at the store, and I was a regular patron of TCBY when we still had those in Springfield, Missouri. So imagine my delight when I heard that some new frozen yogurt stores were opening in Springfield, one only a few blocks from my house. I had been that happy since I watched President Clinton question the meaning of the word is back in the 90s. But when the magical day came and the stores opened, I found myself surprised to find they were designed around some ultra-modern style, with oddly shaped chairs, blindingly bright colors, and a general ambiance that seemed to cater to the 20-year-old hipster demographic. A place I clearly didn't belong. So, the frozen yogurt was very good, but I don't think I could stick around there for long. While I am inside, a profound sense of unease fills me, making me doubt that I'm in a safe place. I like the overall product, but the packaging simply does not work for me. This is a metaphor I use for the early editions of Vampire the Masquerade. Contained within the book is a really interesting gaming potential, but it's surrounded by a lot of pointless pretentiousness. Can't I just play a creature of the night without the Robert Smith hairdo, the nihilistic poetry, or the personal tragedy that makes me want to wither away from consumption? I'm not hip enough for that. I want the instant gratification that comes from throwing a Buick or punching with enough force to bring down the Petronas Towers in Kuala Lumpur. Frozen yogurt and Vampire the Masquerade, brought together. Take that, Al-Qaeda.
Life is the answer to all those who are living, and to those gone. Our life has been strong.
And we're back. And that was great letter time. So,
Well, thank you.
well,
I worked really hard on it.
oh, that's great to hear.
Isn't it?
I could tell. I
I
guess.
know. I
So-
have one of those faces.
I was talking about the letter. I wasn't even looking at your
I'm a
face.
gorgeous bastard, Ross.
You have a face for radio, Tom. See what I did there.
Son of a bitch.
I was waiting for a long time for that. We are going to be doing shout-outs right now. Tom, why don't you start
I'll
us
go
off?
ahead and kick things off. Well,
Yeah.
I'm doing this shout out, but I guess the credit really goes to Ross. There's a Dario Argento, an Italian horror director, mainly from the 70s.
80s.
And
70s and 80s, yeah.
Yeah,
He's still making movies,
Yeah,
though.
he's. I've seen two of his. I've seen Demons and Demons 2.
Yeah.
And actually, I watched.
Actually, those he just produced. Let's see here. Directed by Lombardo Bava, I think.
Well,
anyways.
those two movies I watched when I was staying over here watching Ross's Lizard when he was gone on a trip.
Oh, yeah.
So I perused his collection.
Okay.
But no, the one we watched last weekend before last was a movie called Phenomenon.
Yeah.
Now, who is? I forget her name, but it's like some actress's film debut.
Jennifer Connelly.
Jennifer Connelly, her first movie, about a girl that has the psychic empathy with insects and the ability to communicate and control them.
Yeah.
And she uses this ability with the help of an entomologist,
Donald Pleasance.
played by Donald Pleasance,
With a Scottish accent and in a wheelchair.
like who you might know him as the president from Escape from New York.
Well, most people know him as the doctor who chased down Michael Myers in the original
Well,
Halloween.
but I know him from Escape from New York.
Well, you're the only one who thinks.
I know, I am. I'm unique.
You're weird.
I'm a beautiful, unique snowflake. Anyway, but no, she uses this power to hunt down a serial killer with the help of this entomologist by like using like fireflies to help her navigate.
Well, don't spoil it for them.
Well, okay.
That's the basic setup.
Well, okay, using fireflies and like
Yeah.
and other various insects to help her on this case.
Yeah, don't.
And I'm definitely not going to reveal this part, but there's one scene in particular that was the reason Ross said, Tom and everyone else, you need to watch this.
Yeah.
And I waited and waited, and then it came, and I'm like, well, Ross, you were not wrong. I needed to see this.
It's a pretty bad. Now, of course, I like the movie even before the scene in particular because it's made 1985. It's really fucking weird. The soundtrack is insane. There's Motorhead, and just coming out of fucking nowhere. They'll just
In scenes where there shouldn't be Motorhead.
Yeah, exactly. And the gore is kind of fake.
It's like having a quiet walk in the woods.
And then
with-
Motorhead just starts belting
with
out.
like Ace of Spades suddenly playing.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a great movie. It's got this weird, fucked up fairy tale feel. It takes place in Switzerland. Jennifer Connelly is an American exchange student at this prestigious academy. It's an amazingly original horror film, and it's just so the choices Argento makes are so weird and different that it just is worth watching. And if you're a horror fan, I recommend it. You know, if you're one of those new like, oh, this movie isn't a Michael Bay super hypercut like ADD directed, then yeah, no, you're not gonna like it because it's slow, but it's worth it. It's awesome.
And then the payoff.
Yeah, well, yeah.
I'm not saying a damn word.
It's that scene, and there are
That
other
scene.
Yeah, it's just
There's other scenes too.
There's other scenes, and they're all fucking great as far as I'm concerned. So, anyways, so yes, great shout out there.
Thank you.
Anyways, I'm going to mention obviously the Unspeakable Oath
Again,
because we're not only doing episode 1. We did episode 1, 2.5 hours long interview reviews. Talk about Mansions of Madness, which is a shitty board game. I have to say, I played it one more time, and it is I got eliminated from the game. I had to wait an hour for the other people to finish.
is this the one you said that there was like something that was like only to your character that if you leave the game you're out entirely?
Yeah,
That's a really stupid thing to have.
yeah, because you can like
It's like no more fun for you.
yeah, exactly. You get kicked out of the game for no good reason. It's just a really bad game. I mean, if you're the keeper, I can see you having fun, but like if you're a player, your turns are in too quickly. You get nailed pretty quick. Anyways, I could go on and on.
It's nothing like we didn't play test this at all.
Well, yeah, at least that's short.
Yeah.
That's short and awesome. But the Unspeakable of what I was going to mention is we're doing actual plays too. We're going to have a Delta Green game as an actual play on there, and we'll be putting more online in the future. So keep an ear out for it.
Keep an ear out.
It's on iTunes now, so review it on iTunes. Review RPPR on iTunes if you haven't already. Review RPPR actual play on iTunes.
We need feedback.
We love feedback. We live off of it.
We call it the juice.
Yeah, yeah. We need to juice up. So you had another one, Tom.
Yeah, actually,
The found footage.
Yeah, I know. The thing is, I was trying to get that title in my head because I walked in on this when this was playing at Ross's house.
Yeah.
Aaron and I Ross has kind of done Saturday night as a movie night.
Yeah,
And while they were waiting for us, so thoughtfully, they were apparently playing something else. So we come in with our bags of pizza bits, and they're watching something called the Found Footage Festival.
That's it. Volume 3, I
Volume
believe.
3, and we walked in right as they were doing a clown thing.
Yeah.
Specifically, we walked in on the Clown Ministry, and it's nothing to do with like the music group Ministry, where like it's like clowns playing music. No, it's a clown church. And I looked at it and I thought, I should be making a sand check here because these clowns are freaking my shit right out. I just walked in on this.
Yeah.
I have no context here.
There's not much context to have.
Aaron and I, we both froze when we saw this. It's like these clowns walking. Was it a nursing home?
Yeah, they were like ministering to the.
If I was a guy, if I was a retiree in a nursing home, that would be the last thing I want to see.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh God, has the time come?
Yeah, pretty much.
So they do like different sections. Like they have a section on 80s hunks.
Yeah.
Like it's like weird footage of that, or the how-to videos. I think some of my favorite had to be the sexual harassment training videos.
Yeah, those are pretty good. Anyways, so just so you understand, the Found Footage Festivals, what they do is they find, they go through VHS tapes and bargain basement DVDs and all that kind of stuff, and they compile the weirdest, most obscure clips they could find and put them together as compilations, show them to people. They've done like what's the guy who curses, the motorhome guy who what's that brand of motorhomes? Do you know what I'm talking about? Whatever. He's making a motorhome instructional video or promotional video, and he keeps cursing, and they record all of the outtakes.
Oh yeah, they were.
Yeah.
What was the name of that? They released a thing on that.
There's a documentary about the guy. It's something Guy. I want to say Yeah, I'm just blanking. Anyways, they have him. That's kind of like the standard of what the found footage festival is going for.
Was it RV Man?
No, it was the brand name of the RV.
Okay.
I don't remember, and I can't be Google. I can't be asked to Google. Google.
You don't feel the Google right now.
No, I'm just lazy.
Good enough.
So they put out 3 volumes of this stuff, and it's fucking great. There's actually, I found out the Onion AV Club. They've been partnered with the Found Footage Festival people, and they actually put little clips online, and they have the Clown Ministry clips on the Onion AV Club's website.
Nice.
So we'll put a link up to that, so you can be horrified as well. Be horrified like Tom. Be traumatized.
And I was traumatized.
Yeah. So good times. So
Yeah. It's a good thing Aaron just bought a lot of booze.
Yeah. Yes.
Even though I don't drink.
Yes. So the other thing was I think Aaron needed it. Anyways, I had another one. Let's see here. Risking It All, Pakistan. Al Jazeera, the news network, they put a lot of their stuff online on YouTube, and they have one show called Risking It All, which is about truck drivers in the third world. And they have one, the one episode I watched was about truck drivers in Pakistan, in the northern mountainous region of Pakistan. And it's
driving ancient trucks,
like, 700,000 kilometers
on the
plus.
odometer.
Yeah. It just
the
stopped.
odometer stopped working years ago.
Yeah. And they're driving this one-lane mountainous route to get to these, really hard to get to villages to get supplies to them, and it's basically one lane. Period.
But I saw there's still seems like there's still trucks coming the opposite direction.
Yeah, so you have to back up and let them go, and then you go. It's like biggest truck has right of way, and it's insanely dangerous. It's a 25-minute program and goes into their life, how hard it is. What they have to do to keep it running, and yeah, it's a really, really.
You think you got a hard job?
Oh my God, yeah.
You don't even know.
Oh God, damn! I would not want that job, because if you die, you're gonna die. I mean, you just fall over, and there's no way that you can get help because it's just
you're in the middle. You're in nowhere.
Yeah. Well, there are other truck drivers, but I mean,
so what are they gonna do? Like,
we can't get to you. You fell off too. Yeah, exactly. I mean,
he could still be
and
alive.
it's free. It's all on YouTube. It's a 25-minute program, highly well made, as good as anything you're going to see on Discovery Channel or Traveler's Channel or anything like that.
Ice Road Truckers and some shit.
It's fucking way better than Ice Road. Ice Road Truckers, the Pakistani truck drivers wish they had the ice trucker job. Be like, oh, on ice, fuck it, yeah.
It's like shit. We used to dream about driving on ice.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the narrow. I mean, that's smooth, and that's much better. Like at one point, they actually have to stop and wait a day so they can bulldoze the avalanche that blocked off the one road that they had to go past. Like literally, they have to wait for a fucking bulldozer to show up to bulldoze a new path through the highway, or not even through the road. I mean, through this fucking dirt road. I mean, that's how bad it is. So yeah, good stuff. You had another one.
Yeah,
whitest kids,
Yeah, I know. I already posted this on the
forums.
On the forums, but there's the whitest kids did a rap video that just speaks to everything that is me.
Yeah,
it's about getting high with dinosaurs.
Because you're all about the 420, is that it, Tom?
Yeah.
You're admitting it now.
I also kind of like dinosaurs.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, just a bit.
Just a bit. So much so that I've said, Ross, I'll actually pay you money if you put this in a game somewhere.
Dinosaur rap?
No, like dinosaurs and us allowing to party and get high with them.
Oh, well, in Eclipse Phase that could be possible, but Caleb's running it, so tell Caleb.
Well, no. It could very well happen in Wild Talents too.
This is true.
I would actually have a nice crisp 20 for you if you were able to do that somehow. And make it good, not just a throwaway scene. I'm very specific on that. If it's a throwaway scene, I'll give you 5.
I'm such a whore that I'm.
If it's a throwaway scene, I'll give you 5.
Yeah, wait till I have rent to pay at the end of the month. Anyways, so I have 2 more. Magicka, Nippon, and Marshlands, new DLC for Magicka. They're also adding PvP to Magicka. So instead of accidentally blowing up your comrades...
It's on purpose.
It's on purpose this time, exactly. And Magicka Nippon, you get a katana and a staff that gives you resistance to all the elements, only 99 cents. Half the money goes to Japan. So it's 99 cents, fucking do it. And then Marshlands, new maps for fighting, surviving, undead theme too. So
Oh well, Ross is right there.
I know, right? Like, oh my god! So
Ross likes undead the way I like dinosaurs.
yep, I did write a book about it. So yeah, DLC for Magicka, it's great, and the PvP I think was coming for free, so that'll be great too.
Fantastic.
Magicka is just a great game. Anyways, that's why I put like 40 hours into it. So you know,
Wow.
yeah. Black Bag Jobs. That is the first group of scenarios for the Laundry RPG, which is I'm like the only person who is a fan of it here, because I'm the only one who is, because everyone else is reading Dresden Files. And I'm sure Dresden Files are fine. I haven't read them. It's just
It's not laundry.
it's not the Laundry exactly. It's not British occult humor espionage. So. You know,
Bleh.
Black Bag Jobs is a group of scenarios about it, taking place everything from London to Afghanistan to an oil rig in the middle of the Atlantic where bad things happened, as you can imagine.
Oh, I'm sure it's all happy-go-lucky.
So I'll probably be running one of those scenarios for RPPR sooner or later. But if you want to check it out, I mean, it's like $25, so it's a good deal, and it's got some good scenarios in it. Got a very Lovecraftian theme to it. I don't want to spoil it, but they got some interesting ideas in it.
They got some things.
So yeah. So anyways, finally we have our letters and anecdotes. So why don't we do the reader letters first? So why don't we talk about? This is from Michael. Leave his last name off in case he wants to be private. Anyways, hi guys. I've enjoyed listening to your podcast over the last 2 years, as well as your actual play. Some of the subjects that you've discussed on RPPR are really interesting. You've really helped me improve as a player and a GM. I have a request though. One of the challenges I faced is in finding good players. I live in New York City, and there's actually tons of gaming groups here that cater to all kinds of gamers: old school, new gamers, board games, LARP, etc. I feel like I'm in a hotbed of players, but I've struggled to find a good group. Maybe it's personal, but I found very few people that I enjoy meeting with and gaming with. I'm continually impressed with the new players you find and hosted in your games. How do you find them, and how do you screen them? You really have gathered together a great group and have had players come and go who are high-quality contributors. What's your secret? Maybe a subtopic is about developing player preferences, or maybe developing the right attitudes. Is there a balance of player types you think that works? When you encounter a player that nobody likes, how do you deal with it? Well, that part is simple. You just stop inviting them. Be an asshole. I realize it may be as simple as playing with your friends, but my friends aren't into gaming. What methods do you suggest in assembling a crack team of role players that will keep it real? Because that's the important thing.
Yes.
I hope you find this potentially interesting topic for discussion. Keep up the great work, and thank you for the great podcast. Now, Tom and I discussed this before we started recording, and it's a good topic. The problem is Tom and I both thought we couldn't really do a whole episode about this because we've just been really lucky.
Yeah, we really have. Like, a lot of it's been like friends of other players we've gotten.
Yeah. No, it has been. Like, just thinking about, the main group. Like, first there was Patrick and Cree. Those were fellow English grad students that Patrick was, and then Cree was engaged to him, and so they were there. And this was before I started recording, really. So some of you won't.
This is around the time of the Age of Masks.
Yeah. Then there was Jason, who was another GA. I think he was a friend of Patrick as well. So he got roped into it, and so he stuck around. Of course, Tom I've known since high school, so
Yeah,
friend, forever.
Yeah, pretty much like since our sophomore year.
Yeah. Let's see the other players. Cody, we've talked about that. He's talked about that. He was at a comic book shop, and I mentioned Call of Cthulhu, and he's like, "Oh yeah, like try that." And so I invited him, and it worked out.
Yeah.
So with Cody, he expressed interest in Call of Cthulhu, and I invited him. I had no idea what he was like, whether he was good or bad as a player, and it just happened to work out. So Caleb was a friend of Cody, so Cody invited him. So a friend of a friend, that's another thing. Let's see here.
Thad.
Aaron is your friend.
Aaron was my friend.
So friend of a friend.
Yeah. What about Thad?
Thad was also from Cody. Cody's very much a social butterfly.
Yeah.
Everybody knows Cody. So again, he's also an English GA student. So my guess, get English grad students. Maybe
They're into that sort of shit.
yeah. What are the other mainstays? Let's see here. Drew, he's somebody I knew. He was another student I met, and he was into gaming, so I invited him, and he worked out pretty well. Of course, he's back in St. Louis now. What are ours? Let's see here. Bill.
Actually,
Bill was a friend of Jason's, I believe. So was Dan.
Yeah, they were roommates.
Yeah, so I think Dan maybe was through Matt and John and Katie. Again, people I just met and gamed with in college.
Actually, remember Andy?
Yeah, well,
No, he actually. Andy is a good friend of mine and a good role player. I game with all the time. He was actually he just walked right up to us at metagames one time
yeah,
and just said, "Hi, I'm Andy. I have a game of my own."
yeah.
And that's pretty much how we met him. So I guess if you want another way to meet a group is to find some people that are already role playing and just, "Hi, I'm me."
Yeah. And of course, if you have that, you have a chance to observe them to see if they're going to be your kind of thing. Now, there's some things that are going to be more specific to you, like what kind of gamers you're looking for. You mentioned that there was a lot of gamers in New York City, but none that you've clicked with. So, I mean, you didn't say what you click with, so I can't help you on that. But look with genre things. Like for me, Cody expressed an interest in Call of Cthulhu. And obviously,
Ross
that's
has a small interest in Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, that's a good sign. I mean, like Call of Cthulhu players is good people. In my experience. Another thing, obviously, shared educational background or something like that. English, grad students in general are kind of nerdier than the average person. I'm sorry. If you're a grad student, you would take umbrage at this. I'm sorry, but you're a grad student.
It's been our experience.
Well, no, it's just you're a grad student. You're going to higher education, a degree that may or may not financially pay out for you. You're kind of a nerd. You're kind of going,
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have to admit it. I mean, you're a grad student. Come on.
Come on. Yeah. Also, once again, and make sure you can just hang out with them. That's actually my experience. If you're someone that they only want to role play with you and they don't want to hang out with you, it's never worked out for me.
Right. Of course, that's not going to help you with the initial recruiting, though.
No, it's not.
That's like if you're kind of on the fence about it.
Well, that's just if you happen to find somebody to know if they're going to work out for you.
Yeah.
You could find a gamer, but then suddenly realize that, well, you work really well in a game, you actually despise each other. Like, not one may despise each other, but have nothing else in common.
Yeah. That will lead to friction. One thing is obviously some players have dropped in and out more on their own preference. Mike, by the way, is a friend of Jason, and he just showed up, and I just gave him an NPC.
I see Mike damn near every day.
Oh yeah,
around 4 o'clock or so, he walks right by Springfield Blueprint.
Probably, I think he works downtown.
So yeah, and I see him. He's always in the process of putting on a suit as he's walking down the street.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. Or maybe he lives downtown. I'm not sure. I saw Mike the other day when we saw X-Men First Class. Mm-hmm. He liked it, by the way, which is
yes,
not a surprise.
I did too. But that's all we're going to say about that.
Yeah, exactly. If you listeners out there, if you have comments on advice on how to get good, find better players. I mean, we've just been really fortunate in terms of finding really high quality.
We've
people.
hit a lot of winners on the first try.
I mean, there have been people that have washed out, and that wasn't horrible. That was just kind of they kind of. I know there's one guy who ran Savage Worlds for us once, and then
I don't think I was in that.
No, it was Patrick Curry. It was back at Pepper Tree. And we played one session with him, and it was kind of okay.
Wasn't there a mage game that happened with too?
Well, he moved away. Tim, that was Tim, and that was okay. And he's a good player. He was a good player. He was in that Iron Heroes game I ran that you weren't part of, and he was a great player in that. So he would be a good player here. He just moved away. So you kind of have to keep your eye out and sort of look for people with, I guess, filters that you think would be appropriate. For me, would be not just gamers, but gamers that are into Cthulhu. Because that's kind of, if you're interested in Call of Cthulhu, especially, you're not you can't be that much of a power gamer or munchkin because it's Call of Cthulhu and you're
an investigator.
Well, you either if you're a power gamer, you're in Call of Cthulhu, you horribly misunderstand either Call of Cthulhu or power gaming because you can't do both. You can't really power game in Call of Cthulhu. That's not how the game is designed. So for me, that's kind of a good litmus test.
So you don't want trench coat flapping with two Yithian lightning gun in each hand?
Well, you can, but you're still gonna die horribly.
Well, if not from violence, then radiation poisoning.
Yeah, exactly. So, in other advice, look for people with filters that you think would be good, interest in, everybody can, Dungeons & Dragons doesn't really say much about their playing style. You know what I mean?
Yeah, Dungeons and Dragons can be played any number of ways.
Right, but Call of Cthulhu could only be played in certain ways. Like, you can't really play a Munchkin-y Call of Cthulhu. I've never really heard of that because the rules don't support it.
Unless the GM allows you to play, like, Doles or something.
Well, they're not really playing Call of Cthulhu. They're just making shit up at this point.
Yeah,
so,
there's a whole game. I actually heard of a whole game where someone played where they played Deep Ones.
Well, that I could see, like a hybrid one.
No.
Full deep ones?
Full Deep Ones.
Huh, interesting. Well, we're getting a little off topic.
Yeah.
Other things is, especially if we're meeting new gamers, you might meet them in neutral territory, like a game store and run a game there.
Comic shop.
Yeah, well, if the comic shop has space. Or
a Denny's.
Yeah, not at a Denny's. That's kind of rude and kind of embarrassing if you're...
We used to do it all the time.
I know. We were all dumb.
Well, we were kids.
So yeah, that's my basic advice. Look for grad students. Look for people with games that you think would be good filters that kind of support the play styles that you want. And go through friends of friends. Michael mentioned his friends aren't into gaming. Well, ask your friends if they know anybody who's into gaming. Social network, and then you kind of have to be a little more social extroverted than most gamers are.
A little more assertive.
Well, not introverted, not necessarily assertive, but more extroverted. You have to be extroverted. Like, at least go out there. Hello, I am polite person, man.
Hi, Danny.
Yeah, and be willing to take risks.
Not all of them are going to work out.
Right. So that's all I can really say. Unless you have anything.
No, that's pretty much it.
Well, I'm sure there will be some comments and feedback, and we'll talk more about this in future episodes. So, anyways, the second letter is from Matthew. Somewhere in your last episode, you said we should send in emails regarding stories and whatnot. Of course, here's one related to the topic, and also to Tom's aside. Just for people, he has a long thing about his own cyst. And I'm not gonna read it
because I think RPPR had
we're cyst out.
We had a 1 cyst maximum, and I claimed that.
Nothing against you, Matt. You're fine. It's
just my cyst is already our quota for cysts.
Yeah, we're fine. As for games that get horribly broken a few sessions in, I think I've talked to you about a friend of mine whose character sort of destroyed any challenge I had in games. In my Mutants and Masterminds game, his character had been putting more and more ranks into teleportation. I wasn't quite sure why he was doing that, as his teleportation powers had long since extended past the diameter of the Earth. I finally came to the realization of why he was doing it when I told the players that a reoccurring villain would be coming back in the next session, to which he said, well, he was just going to end the fight by teleporting the guy 3 miles from the surface of the Earth. I was a bit miffed at that. I spent some time playing up the guy as a considerable challenge, and now the player had a fairly unquestionable way to just win the fight. I had to give my feelings on that, and he avoided doing that, leading to a longer, more interesting encounter. It hadn't stopped him from putting more ranks into teleportation to eventually grab that guy and warp into space on the next encounter, though. So yeah, that's the challenge of superhero fights. It's really fucking hard to balance that. You really have to do it on a case-by-case basis, or start breaking out the cosmic blah blah blah. Like, I am Wolverine with
mystical
Silver
MacGuffin.
Surfer powers, so fuck you. I can regenerate, and I'm a Silver Surfer. So yeah. Anyways, then we have another, finally, one letter from Richard. Dear Ross, hi there. My name is Richard. I live in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia, Canada. It's a vaguely shaped, small, vaguely lobster-shaped province with a rich history of British and French conflict, piracy, and secretly aiding America in its fight for independence at one point. Oh, and it was also known for smelly Nova Scotian hookers. I suppose being a port town automatically means cheap and unclean whores. Thanks for being cool about me sending you a book. He sent us a book, small indie RPG on slasher films, or like an RPG about being in a slasher film. Caleb's looking it through, and he's probably going to run it at some point. We'll put an actual play of it when we get around to it.
Give you some props.
Yes. So think you will enjoy it, but since you and your listeners, myself included, are horror fans, and it's a wee tiny book, should be provided a quick read. Blah, blah, blah. Wow, it's kind of like sending a letter to Santa, except you're real and you don't sneak into kids' house. At least I bleeding well hope you don't. No, I do not, for the record. So that was me.
Not on odd numbered years.
No, not at all, Tom.
I'm saying I don't.
Oh, okay.
Even numbered years. Yeah.
Well, that's you. I know you're a writer as well, and I was wondering, how does one go about becoming a writer? I had an aspirations when I was younger, and even pinned a handful of short stories as well as, hate to admit it, horribly bad poetry. Circumstances in life had me quit writing for a very long time, but now I'm wondering if I shouldn't attempt to take this pin up once again. Is it a matter of knowing the right people or having connections? No. Well, I mean, if you...
It might help you get them published.
I mean, yeah, if you're best friends to Paris Hilton, you can write a dirty tell-all book, then yeah, sure, but otherwise, is it dumb luck or sheer talent? Well, it's a little bit of both. You'll probably wonder what I want in return. This book. The answer is nothing. You don't need to give me anything.
Good, because that's what Ross normally gives.
Yeah, well, your shout-out, so this is your shout-out, Richard. Anyways, inside letters to Tom and Cody. I did deliver them, so Cody may email you back at some point. Keep up the awesome podcast. It is one of the best on the internet. Yours faithfully, Richard. Anyways, about writing. Well, you can be a writer just when you write. Now, of course, you probably mean professional writer. Well, you're a professional writer when you get paid to write. Mm-hmm. That's all the distinction is there. Now, the main thing in writing is that it is. I mentioned this in the little email I sent to him. It's a war of attrition more than anything else. In order to be a writer, one must write, and in order to write, you have to sit there at that fucking keyboard. Or write.
Whatever your medium is.
Yeah, and write. And that is a long and tedious process. And then the other second thing is rewriting. You have to fucking revise your work. And the thing is, most people I know who want to write, say they want to write, never have the obsession to keep doing it. You know, the focus, the like, I'm just going to fucking finish this shit. I'm going to keep doing at it and keep hammering away at it until it's done. And that takes some effort and that takes some time. And so for me, that was the main thing is I started writing and I just kept doing it
and kept it up.
So that's the main thing. And writing is revision. Yeah. You have to be.
And your parents had some experience on it too.
Well, I mean, that had nothing to do with me being a writer. I mean, Strader's not a writer.
No.
So they've been helpful when revising, but so have other people have been. It was, you know, they certainly didn't want me to write there. They just said like, go write role playing games. They were
Yes, Father, yes. I shall.
Yes, after I cleaned the chimney and anyways. For writing, aside from writing and revising, it's a long-term thing. You have to be willing to do it. And two, you cannot be precious about criticism. You have to get criticism, and you can't be like, "Oh my God, somebody's done it."
You can't be the person who wrote My Immortal.
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. You can't be the guy like, "Oh my God, fuck you for criticizing me. I'm a perfect, beautiful snowflake." Well,
actually, I think what I most loved about her response is, he says, look, I'm looking for. It's like looking for all those people that gave me. I'm looking for constructive criticism, which I think she was looking for no criticism.
Right.
When someone just gently tells her, "You're not that good."
I know in the creative writing classes, the workshops I took, I was always the one who was always the most blunt and like about. I wasn't an asshole about it, but like, oh, this has a weak protagonist, or this has bad or this dialogue doesn't work for me, or something like that. And you know, so everybody else was very much more careful about being very polite about it, and you can't be totally polite or precious about it. So that's all writing in terms of actually generating material. Now, in terms of getting published, that's more about determination, and there is a degree of knowing the right people and connections. For me, it was going to actually being at Gen Con and approaching Shane Ivey, the publisher, and actually pitching them ideas. And that's the main thing you do is you have to be
networking.
Yeah, well, and by networking I mean just going out there and contacting people like, hey, I'd like to work for you. And I've gotten rejected plenty of times. I mean, I've sent out tons of like, hey, I'd like to write for you guys, and I never hear back from them. There have been once or twice where I did hear back from them and be like, oh, there was actually one time where one publisher was like, oh, yeah, why don't you write this for us as a test to see if you're worthy? So I did. It's like, revise it and do another one. And like, you haven't offered me any money yet, so no.
I see what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. So it was a really weird situation with that, but So I just kept plugging. Literally, it's determination, and there obviously is something about talent. Like you have to be observational, you have to have something worth saying, and but that's a little more advanced. If you first have to be willing to write, revise, and take honest criticism. Separate yourself from your
Don't be
work.
afraid of rejection.
Well, you just have to keep plugging away at it, and sooner or later you'll get it. And for me, I just can't imagine not doing it. I've always had things I've wanted to say, and it's just never occurred to me not to do. It's never occurred to me not to do this. I don't know. I would, even if I was a Wall Street broker or whatever, I'd probably be doing this on my spare time. Yeah. So I just I have a need to tell stories and that kind of thing. So I don't know. So I know that's probably very generic-y writer advice, but that's all I can really say. There is good news too, is in terms of getting published, the more I read about ebooks and that kind of thing, the better it looks. Self-publishing, I don't think has the same stigma it used to have. I think a lot of people are doing, there's Amanda Hawking, who, have you heard of her, Tom? Romance novelist, kind of Twilight, vampire-ish kind of things. I don't know about the quality of them. I read it, but she self-published on the Kindle, for the Kindle on Amazon and Smashwords, I think. And she's sold literally hundreds of thousands of copies, like probably over 500,000 copies now. Now, at $1 a piece. Now, a lot of that, $1 a piece, but
done 500,000 times.
Yeah, she's made millions, and she's been signed with a big publisher. So she went from self-publishing to published. So you don't have to worry about that shit anymore. So like self-publish. If you want to write a fucking novel and put it on Kindle, at least then you will get contact with the market and readers who who don't know you, don't give a fuck about you, and will tell you the truth. They're like, oh man, this shit is awesome. We're like, what the fuck were you thinking? You know what I mean?
You should be put in a gas chamber for this.
A little extreme, but not the worst. The most extreme review I've ever read. So go forth and self-publish if nothing else, because literally there's no value. The whole idea of querying agents, that kind of thing, is fucking ridiculous in this day and age. Especially for a novelist. I mean, you can always get picked up by a publishing company later on, or a literary agent later on, but you might as well. It's better than waiting years. So
And Richard Tufts gave a letter B too.
Yes, well, Richard, yes.
I just said.
Well,
I said that.
I tried to lift up his last name there. But,
oh, sorry.
Yeah. Anyways, go on.
Anyway, he wrote, Dear Tom, hey buds, how are you? Staying away from gun raping people in game. I hope so, unless the GM's a dick. Well, that happened once.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I wasn't proud of it, but there it is.
Well, I was horrified.
Yes, no doubt Ross has let you peek at the letter I gave him, which gives you a rundown of where I come from and such. If he hasn't, call him a dickface and make him read it to you. Yeah, that's right, don't even read it yourself. He should have also shown you the game I gave him, which I know should pique your interest, being a horror fan and the like. Should Ross not have time to run a game of it or be uninterested, you should try your hand at it. It's perfect for one-shots and is very simple. That aside, I came across RPPR when looking for Lovecraftian audio drama and found the AB3 story involving Call of Cthulhu, a poster of Billy Ray Cyrus, and a mother who would scream horribly. Memories.
The achy breaky mythos.
Yeah. I thought that you yourself were El Disgusto, and therefore I immediately thought when I heard the first podcast, oh, that's that asshole guy who crapped himself. I'm glad to see that wasn't the case, at least not literally. I'm a huge fan of your letters, and if I remember correctly, you are in charge of writing RPPR skits, which I also love. The Flame Wars especially. I think I said that before. I've also noticed that you did a very damn good impression of Dr. Girlfriend at one point. Have you taken any acting or drama courses? When you talk about Aaron, you described him as being reluctant to kill player characters. I find I am too a little. Any advice on how to let the hammer fall, so to speak? Take care. I hope to hear back from you soon. Yours sincerely, Richard. P.S. From the photos I've seen of you, you kind of look like a young Robert Englund. I think this is awesome. Well, I mean, I don't like, as I said before, I'm a gorgeous snowflake. I will be, and I am...
Sure, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes, Tom.
Well, for the first question, did I take any acting or drama courses? No, I did not. The mere thought of going in front of an audience with something just fills me with such cosmic dread that I dare not do it.
I took a acting workshop when I was a kid. It lasted a few weeks. I've also done teen court and public speaking classes, and I taught English.
Yeah, this isn't about you, Ross.
Okay.
But no, I of course in college I had to take a public speaking course too, and I'm glad I took the course because it let me realize I should not be doing this.
Oh.
I mean, there were a couple. Most of the people in the course were. Actually, most of them did worse than I did.
Yeah.
There's, and they can barely form words. Then there are like 3 people in the class that like these people are born to do this. They walk in suits, and they have PowerPoint slides. And,
fucking PowerPoint.
And you can tell they've rehearsed this like 5 times. They know every word. I'm like, fuck you. Seriously, fuck you. How dare you be good at this?
Poor Tom, feeling insecure.
This I can do. Speaking into a microphone, only looking at Ross's face. Yeah, this I can do.
See, I don't look at Tom when I'm doing this.
Yeah, which is sad. I kind of would love to do actual stand-up comedy, but I would get the same thing happening.
Aw, Tom, you can do anything you set your heart to.
Yeah, I know. Just
except playing in the NBA. You're not.
No, that's right. I think you can safely scratch that right off the list there, Ross. But
or
anyway,
the NFL.
Anyway,
or
as to
soccer.
advice on how to kill player characters.
I couldn't either.
Really, I think the only thing to do here is just be willing to let the dice fall where they may.
Yeah.
And if it results in a player's death, that's what the dice said.
Yeah.
The thing is, don't make them take it personally.
Richard, you're going to know your group better than we do, and if your group's that insecure or neurotic about that stuff, then that's going to suck because they're going to oh my god, I can't.
Like if it's like that one tracked comic book, the Jack Chick book, where her dies and she kills herself.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, I think you need to get rid of that person anyway. But no,
Blackleaf. No.
Oh, Jack Chick, is there anything you can't make glorious?
Have you seen this blaxploitation track?
Yes, I have.
That one is great.
Yes,
it's
it is.
fucking awesome. There's like
not as good as that parody one some did of like a Cthulhu.
Yeah. No, the authentic thing you got to get the authenticity.
Yeah,
anyway.
the whole massively black and white view of the world.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Oh
anyway, but no, really, it's that's just the simple thing is don't seek to kill your players. I think the thing is just don't be afraid to do it. Just if someone you're fighting rolls an awesome critical hit, which kills a player, it was that player's time to die. And also in a lot of games, that doesn't even have to be permanent.
Yeah.
Depending on what you're playing.
Right, resurrection spells, or you're in eclipse phase.
Yeah, and it's like poo.
Or paranoia, where you have clones.
Yeah, but even if it's a game where the death is permanent, that can actually add to the story. Just that all the players can talk back. Like, do you remember that case where we lost Billy? Like, that was weird, man.
Yeah, another thing, personally, I'm reluctant to kill. It's hard for me to kill player characters if it's at a bad time in real time, like in the sense like we're 1 hour into a 4-hour game and somebody stepped on a landmine or something or did something stupid. I don't want to kill them because then they're out the rest of the game. I feel like I'm an asshole for doing that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
If it's a finale, then it's fucking go time and it's time to die. But otherwise, it's.
Or it's like I think it was Professor Feelgood from Mad Max Beyond Thunderdome. Like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, dying times here.
Yeah, exactly. Because then that player doesn't have to wait long in order to jump back into the next.
Yeah, I remember I'm not gonna go into much detail, but the big finale game for this section, the first section of your Wild Talents.
Yeah,
there was a lot of just nerve-wracking, just people watching dice fall.
That one actually, I was willing to kill right off the bat, but I just knew that the fight, the way it was.
Well, it was the right time to do it.
Yeah, and I also knew it was going to be very unlikely to kill any player characters that very early on because just of the way it was set up between the heroes and the villains. in that particular case, I just felt it was extremely unlikely that the villains would be able to off one of you guys right off the bat, and I was right. I mean, it was. I mean, Aaron, of course, did his best, but you know.
Well, you know, it's timing's important.
Yeah.
You know, if you're just starting off a game session or a campaign, that might not be the best time to break out the A-10 Thunderbolt airstrike. By the way, I believe I already talked about that.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of that, I would, of course, one thing is also just getting used to it. Like, it always feels weird the first time you do it. Like, so many things.
Aaron.
Yeah.
You know. Actually, I was proud of Aaron. He actually kind of felt a little bit of pride with that.
Yeah.
Because it was a perfectly legitimate death.
So, Richard, I would first start off easy by running like a one-shot game in a highly lethal RPG like Call of Cthulhu or something like that, and just fucking be a vicious asshole and just kill some players. I was just like,
in fact, actually,
you open a door, you die.
It's like, make that kind of one of the selling points of the game.
Yeah.
The dude, like, you know, like,
you're gonna fucking die.
Yeah, like, I got a game coming up, you know, that's kind of a Monsters Loose in Las Vegas type thing.
Yeah.
Where I've actually created 30 NPCs.
Right.
Or 30 PCs that the players will choose from randomly.
Right. So the idea is that we would respawn once we died. So you built it into the game, so you can easily justify killing someone in the first 5 minutes. Like, I opened the red door. You're dead.
Like,
Landmine.
It's like, oh, it's Claymore.
Yep, you're dead.
Oh, also, Claymores can be used as currency.
Fuck. Yeah. That's with the Wild Talents game, too.
But yeah, I think the most is just don't make sure they don't take it personally, and don't make that your overriding goal.
Yeah.
But if a player dies in a game, it happens.
Yeah, it does.
It's just it's just shit happens.
Kind
of like in real life, actually.
Yep. Which all good science fiction should be based on the current science of the real world, and thus we bring it full circle.
And scene.
Oh, except for your last anecdote. You want to talk about Aaron?
Oh yes. This one is actually from the Wild Talents game.
Yeah, here's an
Aaron's playing what's his name now again?
Steel Centurion.
Steel Centurion. And I was actually gone one session. I had shit to do. But so apparently I missed some important things that session that Aaron did, which
well, to set it up, Aaron and Jason's character were exploring a secret superhero base that was heavily trapped, and they were trying to work together to bypass all the traps so they get into the base and get vital information that they needed. Because the superhero himself had disappeared long ago and had this, obviously computer with all kinds of crime files and all this other stuff. And so they're bypassing the traps and everything. They get to a one point. They know Jason has a key that he got that will open up, that they don't know what it will open up, but they know it's for this base. And then they get a call. Oh, God, the rest of the characters were dealing with this crazy supervillain on the other side of town. Jason decides he's going to teleport to them and help them because his character can do that, but he can't take Aaron with him. And Aaron believes that it's extremely urgent that they get to inside this base as soon as possible.
Technology.
Actually, because of the time, he got the information from a time travel. Like, somebody from the future gave them the address of this base. So Aaron believes, like, holy shit, we really need to get in here now. A time traveler gave me this information. I need to get in here. So Aaron has X-ray vision. He saw where the key was on Jason's character's, pants.
His person.
Yeah, his person. So he has a, robot strength because, Iron Man type suit. So he just rips it off Jason's character's clothes, just grabs it, and then just jumps down the tunnel to finish on. And Jason's like, fuck. And then he teleports away because he has to go help the others.
Superhero shit.
Yeah. And so Jason's incredibly pissed because what Aaron doesn't know that Jason does know is that this is Jason's character's father was also a superhero. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. So Tom didn't put his phone on silent. Anyways.
I'm a beast.
So Aaron goes in there hoping to unlock the last door and get into the base as soon as possible to get the information he believes is of life and death importance. However, there's one last trap before the door, and it's a magical trap, and Aaron's character is technological. Now, Jason happens to be a magical character, could have disarmed the trap easily, but Aaron isn't, and Aaron's like, oh shit, I'm fucked. But Jason had a magical imp, an imp from hell, to spy on Aaron to see what was going on. And the imp is, of course, an independent character, an NPC. So I'm like, all right, I'll fuck with Aaron. The imp appears. He was invisible, but now he's visible. And he's like, hey, I can give you a way there. I'll take your soul down to hell and take you to this guy called the Forger. The Forger can tell you how to bypass the trap. He'll want a favor from you, but it won't be your soul. You'll just owe this guy a favor. And then I'll take you right back. And Aaron's like, okay. Yeah.
You see where the drama builds up.
Yeah.
And the conflict.
Right. And so Aaron goes down to hell, and he has to kill a demon in order to get the Forger out, or from being tormented, so he can talk to him. And he talks to the Forger. Forger's like, all right, you owe me a favor, and then tells him how to bypass the trap. But before Aaron leaves hell, he hears a woman screaming.
Go on.
And he sees that
Aaron.
this woman is being tortured. And he's like, well, I rescue her. And
now I would like to bring in exactly my problem here.
yeah.
If someone's screaming and being tormented in hell, they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
But Aaron just sees screaming woman.
Yeah, so he rescues her and takes her out of hell. And then he gets back to his own body. The imp is true to his word. He takes him back to his own body. And Aaron bypasses the magical trap and gets in the base and gets information. And of course, Jason's incredibly pissed at him.
Good drama.
Yeah, good drama, and that was a big thing. But Aaron then finds out later that the woman has risen up as a revenant, an undead killer, going to get revenge on the man who killed her.
Only she's not too clear on who that is.
Well, no. Well, Aaron isn't. Aaron knows. The woman knows. The woman is perfect memory, but Aaron never thought to ask her what her name was. He still doesn't know what her name is, so he doesn't know where the hell she is or who she's going to try and kill, or if she's already killed someone. Now, of course, he also finds out that woman was in hell for killing her own children because of a bad love affair and everything. So I have this whole backstory set up, but Aaron's like, whatever. Yeah. And so the Forger breaks out of hell too because Aaron killed the demon that was torturing,
which was also in charge of watching him.
Yeah. So now there's two souls escaped from hell on Earth now because of Aaron.
Yeah. And I don't know where this came from, but so when my character comes back from whatever he was like doing some horrible black, what is it?
He was beating up protesters for the government.
Like some horrible government Thunderbolt team.
Right. He was beating up protesters in Seattle. That's what he was doing.
And I get back to my tower. First thing I notice, there's a guy with a bag over his head tied up to a chair in my tower.
Right. That's a super villain that Jason left to deal with. So.
Mm-hmm. And apparently is a psychic that can mentally possess people.
Yeah.
So first thing I come in like, why is there a person tied up in my tower? Who is this person? And Jason's like, relax. It's just someone I found. He's a super psychic. Like, why is he here? What have you done? And then Aaron comes back.
Yeah.
And for some reason, Aaron entrusts his secret to me.
Yeah.
I'm like, what? Like at first it's just okay, what did you do? I can tell you did something here. And then he tells me, like, why did you break souls out of hell? Well, first of all, why are you in... No. I don't want to know why you were in hell. Just tell me why you brought souls out. And eventually, this whole scene leads to, I finally, like, okay, you and me, we're going to go get a cheeseburger and something, and then you're going to tell me everything that happened here. And so we're sitting there, and I'm like, okay, well, I'm good cheeseburger, glad you have it. Bacon on it, good, cheese, I like yellow thing. Now perhaps you can tell me why there are souls out of hell that you are responsible for. And while we are sitting there, the Forger goes into the restaurant where we are.
Yeah, he escaped from hell too.
So he's there it's like, hi, you're one of the escaped souls from hell. That's great.
Yeah.
And this whole time, like, Aaron, give him your cheeseburger. Seriously, I'm actually very angry right now. But just this whole thing of me, like, I'm gone for 3 days to beat up protesters for the sake of my government, so I don't go to prison. You're going to hell getting souls out. No. I'm not going to deal with this. I have a son. I have a son that hates me. I have to do dirty work for the government. I am so not dealing with this right now. It was like really good role playing on all sides because Aaron's like, yeah, I made a mistake. I was like, yes, you did. Yes, you did. The thing is,
To be fair, you guys, the other players, when Aaron, in the session you missed, the Aaron's totally egged Aaron on when he was like,
well, of course they did.
Caleb in particular is like, Aaron had stolen the key from Jason, and then he got to this last area, and then I explained the magical trap to him, and then the imp made the offer to him, and then Aaron was like, I don't think so. And Caleb's like, why? Why are you stopping now? You have just barreled on, going on impulse from impulse.
Now you have a
now
moment.
you stop, and like the other players, I was like, come on, Aaron, you made
The thing is, I mean, the role playing was brilliant on all sides. It really was.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron was doing really well too, just because everything he was saying was just him admitting to guilt, but
Yeah.
it's like, yes, it was my fault, but
Yeah.
and like I kept going, no, you broke the souls out of hell,
Yeah.
you.
Well, it'll be fun to see how you guys deal with that in the future.
But I think the most fun was just, so this is one of the souls that escaped from hell, and he's here.
Yeah.
Why is he here?
Yeah. So of course we'll eventually have that. We did record that game. We'll have it online eventually.
In 2062.
In 2060 and 2012, End of the World. You know, keep up, Tom. All the games.
Well, I think we might be able to survive the wasteland afterwards
well, yeah,
as horrible mutants.
yeah, of course.
But if we do
yeah.
continue the show after 2012, its formats might be a little different.
Yeah.
And
Screaming.
instead of us, talking, it might just be us snarling and grunting in a primitive fashion and eating corpses.
Right, or like the quiz show from Mitchell and Webb. We'll talk about that. Yeah, that's a good, very funny clip. Very, very, very funny.
Indeed.
Tragic. Anyway, so this has been Role Playing Public Radio, RPPR episode 58, the games of tomorrow.
We're getting close to 60.
Yes, yeah, that's
awesome.
Maybe by the end of 2012 we'll be up to 60 because I have to schedule everything now.
Well, it's your convenience.
Yeah, well, it's at your convenience too, Tom. You can take the initiative.
But we do it over here.
I know, but you can say, "Hey, let's record an episode. I'm available."
Would that blow your mind if I did that?
It would. It would be so awesome. So,
All right, Ross. I might just take you up on that.
oh shit, glove has been thrown down. It's on like Donkey Kong.
But you're gonna have to admit. You're gonna have to admit it on the show that I did that.
yeah, no, I'll totally do that.
Proudly?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
All right.
We have a thing.
Okay, we'll see you guys next time.
All right.
Step into the rhythm of the groove, you can lose it. We can prove it if we want to. We can prove it if we want. The future's in the future, it's come down here upon us. Watch